Hey everyone! Welcome to part 2 video of Urban Legends. Here we will discuss about few more of them. If you haven't seen part 1, I will leave link into description where you can see that video. Disclaimer: this content may include explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. The intention is not to offend but to provide information. Proceed only if you are comfortable with potentially sensitive topics. It contains elements that may be unsettling. Reader discretion is advised. Remember, this is a piece of folklore intended to evoke a sense of suspense and caution. It is not based on real events. 9. The Choking Doberman. Once upon a moonlit night, amidst the quiet suburbs, whispers of a chilling legend echoed through the streets. It was the tale of the Choking Doberman, a story that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. It all began with a humble family, nestled in a cozy home with their faithful Doberman by their side. One fateful evening, the family returned home to find their beloved canine in a state of distress, choking and gasping for air. Panic seized their hearts as they rushed the poor creature to the vet, desperate for answers. The vet's examination yielded a shocking discovery. Lodged deep within the Doberman's throat was a severed human finger. Horrified and bewildered, the family tried to make sense of this ghastly revelation. How could such a gruesome thing happen? Rumors spread like wildfire, weaving a tapestry of fear and intrigue around the incident. Some whispered of an unseen assailant lurking in the shadows, while others spoke of a sinister plot unfolding in the quiet corners of the neighborhood. As days turned into weeks, the mystery only deepened. Strange occurrences haunted the family, from eerie phone calls to ominous messages left at their doorstep. Each clue led them deep to the heart of darkness, where the truth lay waiting to be uncovered. But just when they thought they had unraveled the enigma, a new twist emerged, casting doubt on everything they thought they knew. Was the Doberman truly a victim, or was there something more sinister at play? To this day, the legend of the Choking Doberman lingers in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. And though the truth may never be fully known, the echoes of that chilling tale continue to reverberate through the annals of urban folklore. 10. The Licked Hand. The tale of the Licked Hand has been whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones for generations. It's a story that sends shivers down the spine and leaves listeners checking under their beds before they sleep. It begins with a young woman, home alone on a stormy night, her only companionship her faithful dog. As the rain beats against the windows and the wind howls outside, she settles into bed, feeling safe with her loyal pet by her side. But as she drifts off to sleep, she's startled awake by the sound of dripping water. Concerned, she reaches her hand down to the floor, seeking solace in the reassuring presence of her dog. To her relief, she feels the gentle lick of her dog's tongue on her hand, a comforting gesture that lulls her back to sleep. Throughout the night, she's awakened by the dripping sound, each time finding comfort in the loving lick of her dog's tongue. Finally, morning breaks, and she rises from bed, eager to investigate the source of the mysterious dripping. To her horror, she discovers her faithful companion, his lifeless body hanging from the shower head, blood dripping from his severed neck. Trembling with fear, she realizes that it wasn't her dog licking her hand throughout the night, but the hand a deranged killer hiding in her home. The legend has evolved over time, with variations including the killer's motive and the victim's fate. Some versions feature the woman narrowly escaping the killer's clutches, while others end in tragedy. 11. The Russian Sleep Experiment. In the late 1940s, during the height of the Cold War, Soviet researchers conducted a secret experiment that has since become one of the most disturbing legends ever told. The aim was to explore the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation on human subjects. The setting was a secluded and secure military facility, far from prying eyes and ears. The setup. 5 political prisoners, deemed enemies of the state, were chosen as test subjects. They were promised their freedom if they could endure 30 days without sleep, monitored in a hermetically sealed environment. The researchers used a special gas, an experimental stimulant, to keep the subjects awake. This gas was continuously pumped into the chamber, ensuring that sleep was impossible. The subjects were provided with basic amenities, including books, cots, running water, and enough dried food to last for the entire month. They also had microphones and a two-way mirror through which the researchers could observe them. The first few days. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. The subjects, aware of their constant surveillance, conversed with each other, shared their past experiences, and expressed their thoughts on the experiment. As time passed, their conversations turned increasingly darker and more paranoid. Day 5 to 9, the descent into madness. By the 5th day, the subjects began showing signs of severe stress. Their discussions centered around traumatic experiences and deep-seated fears. Hallucinations started, and the subjects displayed erratic behavior, screaming and crying without reason. On the 9th day, things took a drastic turn. One subject began to scream uncontrollably for hours, his voice eventually reduced to a hoarse whisper as he damaged his vocal cords. The others did not react to his screams, continuing their whispered conversations into the microphones. Silence and suspicion. Then, suddenly, the screaming stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The subjects ceased communicating with the researchers altogether. Concerned, the researchers used the intercom to provoke a response, but there was none. Fearing the wars announced that they would open the chamber to ensure the equipment was functioning properly. Day 15, the horrific discovery. On the 15th day, the researchers decided to open the chamber. What they found was beyond their worst nightmares. One of the subjects was dead, with chunks of his flesh torn from his body. The remaining 4 subjects were found alive but in a grotesque state. They had mutilated themselves, tearing off flesh, removing their own organs, and stuffing them into the drain to prevent the gas from escaping. The subjects begged to be kept awake, showing incredible strength and resistance when attempts were made to sedate them. Despite their severe injuries, they fought violently, showing a superhuman level of strength and resistance to pain. The aftermath. The surviving subjects were put on an operating table for medical attention. They displayed extraordinary resistance to sedatives, needing higher doses to be subdued. Upon falling asleep, they died instantly. The researchers were baffled by the physiological changes observed in their bodies. During the autopsies, it was discovered that the subjects' bodies had become severely self-cannibalized. Their muscles were torn, their bones visible, yet they showed no signs or awareness of their extreme injuries while awake. The gas had induced a state where they no longer needed food or rest but had driven them into a frenzy of self-destruction. The final act. In the final, gruesome act, the last surviving subject broke free from his restraints during an attempt to sedate him. He killed several researchers before being subdued. His last words, as recorded by the horrified staff, were, "I must remain awake." With this, the experiment was deemed a failure, shrouded in secrecy, and the details were buried deep within classified Soviet archives. The researchers involved either disappeared or were reassigned, and the facility was abandoned, left to decay. Legacy. The Russian sleep experiment story is widely regarded as a piece of horror fiction. It originated on the internet. Despite its fictional nature, it has been retold countless times, adapted into various media, and remains a chilling tale that blurs the lines between psychological horror and science fiction. 12. Clown Statue. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, nestled on the edge of town, there lived a wealthy family known for their large, opulent home filled with eclectic art pieces. Among these was an unusual and somewhat unsettling statue, a life-sized clown, frozen in an exaggerated pose with a menacing grin. The clown statue stood in a corner of the home's basement, largely forgotten and ignored due to its eerie appearance. One crisp autumn evening, the parents of the family decided to go out for a dinner party, leaving their children in the care of a new babysitter. The babysitter, a local college student, arrived early and was given a quick tour of the house, including a brief glimpse of the basement and its unsettling occupant. After the parents left, the babysitter and the children settled into their evening routine. They had dinner, played some games, and watched a movie. As it grew later, the babysitter decided it was time for the children to go to bed. She tucked them in, read them a story, and returned downstairs to the living room. After some time, the babysitter began to feel uneasy. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Remembering the clown statue in the basement, she wondered if it could somehow be causing her discomfort. Deciding to err on the side of caution, she called the parents to ask if she could cover the statue with a blanket or move it out of sight. When the parents answered the phone, she explained her discomfort and mentioned the clown statue. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by the mother's voice, now tinged with panic. "Get the children and get out of the house," she said urgently. "We don't have a clown statue." Terrified, the babysitter raced upstairs, gathered the children, and fled the house. They ran to a neighbor's home and called the police. When the officers arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the house. In the basement, they found a man dressed in a clown costume, hiding among the various pieces of art. He had been standing perfectly still, posing as a statue. The man was arrested, and it was discovered that he was a mentally disturbed individual who had been stalking the family for some time. He had somehow gained access to their home and had been living in secret within their basement, coming out only at night or when the house was empty. The babysitter's intuition had likely saved her and the children from a horrifying fate. Over the years, the story of the clown statue spread, taking on a life of its own. As it was retold, details often changed and were embellished. In some versions, the clown statue was said to move on its own, its eyes following people as they passed by. In others, it was said to be a cursed object, bringing bad luck to anyone who possessed it. Despite the variations, the core of the story remained the same, an innocent babysitter discovering that the seemingly harmless statue in the basement was, in fact, something far more sinister. The tale became an urban legend, a cautionary story passed down through generations, reminding listeners to always trust their instincts and to be wary of the unknown. 13. The Mexican Pet. Once upon a time, in the bustling streets of a border town between the United States and Mexico, a tale began to circulate that captured the imaginations and fears of many. This story, which would come to be known as the Mexican Pet, has since become one of the most famous urban legends, resonating with audiences due to its blend of humor, horror, and a touch of the absurd. The legend typically starts with an American tourist visiting Mexico. While exploring the vibrant local culture and scenic beauty, the tourist comes across a small, adorable, and seemingly stray dog. The dog appears to be lost and in need of care. Feeling sorry for the little creature, the tourist decides to bring it back to the United States as a pet. After crossing the border without any issue, the tourist takes the dog home, baths it, and provides it with food and a comfortable place to sleep. For the next few days, the pet seems to settle in nicely, bringing joy and companionship to its new owner. However, as days pass, the tourist begins to notice peculiar behaviors in the pet. It doesn't act like a typical dog, its movements are strange, and it displays unusual eating habits. Concerned about the health of the new pet, the tourist decides to take it to a veterinarian for a checkup. The veterinarian, upon examining the animal, is horrified and immediately steps back, exclaiming, "This is not a dog. This is a Mexican sewer rat." The revelation shocks the tourist, who realizes they've been caring for a large rat mistaken for a small dog all along. The Mexican pet urban legend spread quickly, especially in the 1980s and 1990s, as it tapped into several common anxieties: the fear of the unknown, the potential dangers of exotic locations, and the surprise of discovering something ordinary had a dark twist. It was shared around campfires, recounted in schools, and even appeared in chain letters in early internet forums, evolving slightly with each retelling to suit different locales and audiences. Some variations of the story include different exotic locations, such as the pet being found in Asia or Europe. In some versions, the pet is identified as other wild animals mistaken for domesticated pets, enhancing the shock value of the story. The enduring popularity of the Mexican pet lies in its combination of a plausible beginning with an outrageous conclusion. It plays on the universal experience of misunderstanding or misidentifying something, elevating it to a humorous yet eerie climax. Folklorists and urban legend scholars often cite this story as a classic example of a friend of a friend (FOAF) tale, where the person recounting the story claims it happened to someone they know, adding a layer of credibility. Psychologists have also analyzed the legend, noting it reflects a mix of xenophobia and fascination with the exotic. The initial setting in Mexico and the ultimate reveal of a rat highlight underlying fears and prejudices about foreign places and animals. Even in contemporary settings, the Mexican pet continues to be retold, sometimes updated for the digital age. Memes, social media posts, and online horror forums breathe new life into the tale, ensuring it remains a staple of urban folklore. 14. Well to Hell. In the late 1980s, a sensational story began circulating about a geological project in Siberia that purportedly dug a hole so deep it broke into hell. This tale, known as the Well to Hell, is an example of how a blend of scientific fact, misinterpretation, and human imagination can create an enduring urban legend. The story originated with a group of Norwegian and Finnish scientists who were allegedly conducting deep drilling experiments in Siberia. According to the legend, they drilled a hole that reached an unprecedented depth of 14.4 kilometers, about 9 miles. At this depth, they reportedly encountered unusual and terrifying phenomena. In reality, the actual project closest to this description was the Soviet Union's Kola super-deep borehole, which began in 1970 and aimed to penetrate the Earth's crust as deeply as possible. Located on the Kola Peninsula, the borehole eventually reached a depth of 12,262 meters, about 7.5 miles, by 1989, making it the deepest man-made hole on Earth at the time. Scientists conducted numerous geological experiments, discovering valuable data about the Earth's crust. According to the legend, as the drilling reached its deepest point, the scientists encountered strange temperature spikes, over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,100 degrees Celsius. They then lowered a heat-resistant microphone into the hole to listen to the Earth's movements. To their horror, the microphone supposedly picked up sounds resembling human screams and wails, leading them to believe they had opened a gateway to hell. This eerie tale was first reported by a Finnish newspaper, Amnesty, in 1989. The story quickly spread through tabloid newspapers and sensationalist media across the world, particularly in the United States. It gained further traction when it was picked up by various Christian broadcasts and televangelists, who used it as a moralistic warning about the perils of straying from religious faith. Despite its widespread popularity, the "well to hell" story has been thoroughly debunked. For one, there is no verifiable evidence or records from the scientists involved in the Kola super-deep borehole project that support these claims. The supposed recordings of the hellish screams were later identified as sound effects from a 1972 horror movie, used to add drama to the tale. Additionally, the temperature mentioned in the legend far exceeds what was actually recorded at the Kola site, which was around 356 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius. Today, the Kola super-deep borehole remains a site of scientific interest, although it is no longer actively drilled. It serves as a testament to human curiosity and our desire to explore the unknown depths of our planet. The "well to hell" legend, meanwhile, endures as a captivating myth that continues to spark the imagination of people worldwide. 15. The Green Man. The Green Man is an enigmatic and ancient symbol found in various cultures, primarily across Europe. His image, typically characterized by a face surrounded by or made from leaves, branches, or vines, is a potent emblem of rebirth, renewal, and the natural world. The earliest representations of the Green Man date back to antiquity, with some of the oldest found in Roman Britain and ancient Roman sites. These early images often depict a man's face peering through a mass of foliage, sometimes sprouting leaves or vines from his mouth or nostrils. During the Middle Ages, the Green Man became a common decorative motif in church architecture across Europe. Carvings of his leafy visage adorned countless medieval cathedrals and churches, especially in Britain, France, and Germany. These depictions varied widely, ranging from serene and benevolent to fierce and wild. Despite their frequent presence in religious buildings, the Green Man's exact meaning and purpose were ambiguous. Some scholars believe he represented the integration of pagan symbols into Christian art, embodying the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In the Renaissance period, the Green Man's imagery persisted but evolved. Artists began to incorporate him into broader allegorical contexts, reflecting humanity's growing interest in the natural world and the interconnection between nature and human life. However, as the Enlightenment dawned, the Green Man's prominence waned, relegated to the peripheries of folk traditions and rural crafts. The 19th century saw a revival of interest in medieval art and architecture, bringing the Green Man back into the spotlight. The Gothic revival movement, in particular, led to a resurgence of his imagery in Victorian architecture and garden design. This period also marked the beginning of academic inquiry into the Green Man, with scholars and folklorists attempting to decode his origins and significance. In the 20th century, the Green Man experienced another resurgence, this time within the context of environmentalism and neopaganism. He became a symbol of ecological awareness, representing humanity's relationship with nature and the need for environmental stewardship. This renewed interest was reflected in literature, art, and even popular culture, where the Green Man appeared in novels, films, and music. Today, the Green Man continues to captivate and inspire. He is often seen as a symbol of ecological consciousness, embodying the interconnectedness of all living things and the importance of preserving our natural environment. Modern artists and writers have reimagined the Green Man in various forms, from public sculptures and paintings to literary works and films. In contemporary spirituality, particularly within neo-pagan and Wiccan practices, the Green Man is revered as a deity or spirit of nature. He is often associated with the cycles of the seasons, the growth of plants, and the fertility of the earth. Festivals and rituals celebrating the Green Man, such as those during Beltane and other seasonal celebrations, highlight his enduring significance. 16. Polybius. 1981, Portland, Oregon. In the early 1980s, arcades were the epicenters of teenage culture. Amidst the cacophony of 8-bit soundtracks and flashing lights, a new game purportedly appeared in a few select arcades in Portland, Oregon. This game was Polybius. Polybius was said to be an unassuming cabinet, black with no flashy artwork. The title screen bore the name Polybius in a simple font, and the game was attributed to a company called Sinneslöschen, which translates from German to sense delete or sensory extinguishing. Players described the gameplay as a combination of abstract puzzles and shooter elements, filled with colorful graphics, geometric patterns, and rapid movements. It was captivating, almost hypnotic, with a soundtrack that was equally entrancing. Reports soon surfaced of unusual side effects from playing Polybius. Players allegedly experienced nausea, seizures, amnesia, and night terrors. Some claimed to suffer from severe psychological effects, such as anxiety, depression, and an overwhelming compulsion to play the game again and again. Adding to the mystery, arcade owners recounted visits from mysterious men in black who would service the machines. Unlike typical arcade maintenance workers, these men seemed more interested in data collection, purportedly recording the effects the game had on players. They were suspected to be government agents conducting some form of psychological experiment. Strangely, as quickly as Polybius appeared, it vanished. After a few weeks, the machines were removed from the arcades, leaving behind only rumors and scattered memories among the gaming community. For years, Polybius was largely forgotten, relegated to the annals of obscure arcade lore. However, in the early 2000s, the story resurfaced on the internet, particularly in gaming forums and websites dedicated to urban legends. The resurgence of interest led to numerous investigations and speculation. Skeptics and researchers have attempted to debunk the myth of Polybius. They argue there is no concrete evidence that the game ever existed. No arcade operators from the era have confirmed its presence, and no physical evidence of the game's hardware has surfaced. The name Sinneslöschen itself is suspiciously odd, suggesting a hoax or a clever piece of fiction. Possible origins. Several theories exist about the origins of the Polybius myth. 1. Combination of real incidents. In the early 1980s, there were indeed instances of video games causing adverse effects. For example, the game Tempest was known for its intense visuals, which reportedly caused seizures in some players. Additionally, in 1981, a boy in Portland fell ill after playing video games for 28 hours straight, and another player collapsed and died after a marathon session of Berserk. 2. MK Ultra and government experiments. Some theorists link Polybius to MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control program. The men in black might be reminiscent of the paranoia surrounding government surveillance and experimentation during the Cold War era. 3. Marketing ploy. There is speculation that the Polybius story might have been an elaborate marketing stunt for a game or an attempt to create an urban legend to stir up interest in arcade culture. Today, Polybius remains an enigma, a fascinating piece of digital folklore. It symbolizes the intersection of technology, psychology, and conspiracy theories, embodying the fears and curiosities of the gaming community. Whether a complete fabrication, a misunderstood reality, or something in between, the legend of Polybius continues to intrigue and inspire. 17. The Smiling Man. It is also known as Grinning Man or Indrid Cold, is a fascinating blend of urban legend, paranormal accounts, and internet culture. It begins in the late 1960s, amidst a flurry of UFO sightings and paranormal phenomena. The first significant encounter was reported by Woodrow Derenberger, a sewing machine salesman from Mineral Wells, West Virginia. On the night of November 2, 1966, Derenberger was driving home from work when he encountered a strange, slow-moving vehicle on Interstate 77 near Parkersburg. The vehicle eventually stopped, and a man emerged. According to Derenberger, this man had a dark complexion, was dressed in a reflective green suit, and was grinning broadly. The entity introduced himself telepathically as Indrid Cold. Indrid Cold asked Derenberger a series of questions about the local area and human society before returning to his vehicle and leaving. Derenberger claimed Cold communicated that he was from a planet called Lanulos in the Ganymede galaxy. This encounter profoundly affected Derenberger, leading him to publicize his story, which was met with both fascination and skepticism. Around the same time, the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, was experiencing a series of strange occurrences, including sightings of the Mothman, a mysterious winged creature. Some witnesses also reported encounters with a similar grinning figure. These events were documented by journalist John Keel in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, linking Indrid Cold to broader paranormal phenomena. Over the decades, the legend of the Smiling Man grew, with various sightings reported across the United States and beyond. These encounters often shared common elements: a man with an unnaturally broad grin, unusual clothing, and an otherworldly presence. In the 2010s, the Smiling Man saw a resurgence in popularity, partly due to the internet and the rise of creepypasta and horror forums. A particularly influential story was shared on Reddit's Let's Not Meet subreddit by a user named Blue_Title. Blue Title recounted a terrifying encounter with the Smiling Man while walking home late at night. The story describes how the author noticed a man with a wide grin, dancing erratically under a streetlight. Despite the late hour and the empty streets, the man seemed completely at ease, almost as if he was performing for an unseen audience. As the author continued walking, the grinning man began to follow, matching pace and occasionally breaking into bizarre, exaggerated dance moves. The encounter grew increasingly unsettling as the man mimicked the author's movements, all the while maintaining his unnerving smile. Ultimately, the author managed to escape by sprinting to a more populated area, leaving the grinning man behind. This Reddit story went viral, inspiring numerous adaptations, short films, and discussions. Its eerie simplicity and relatability struck a chord with many, cementing the Smiling Man as a modern urban legend. Today, the Smiling Man exists at the intersection of folklore, urban legend, and internet horror culture. He embodies the fear of the uncanny, something that looks human but behaves in an inhuman, unsettling way. This figure has been featured in various media, from short horror films on YouTube to discussions in paranormal podcasts. The enduring appeal of the Smiling Man lies in its ambiguity. He can be interpreted in many ways: a harbinger of otherworldly beings, a symbol of societal fears, or a manifestation of human anxiety. His constant, unnerving smile contrasts with the fear he instills, creating a potent image that haunts the imagination.